UK charity Lepra is celebrating 100 years since its inception at a meeting in London in 1923. The charity was formally inaugurated in January 1924, meaning their centenary will be celebrated throughout that year. Over the last 100 years, Lepra has been working to find, treat and support people affected by leprosy, a disease that is still present and still misunderstood by many. The charity has had some major achievements in their time. In 1975, they were the first organisation to use multi-drug therapy for leprosy treatment, which has gone on to provide a cure for the disease. However, there are still currently millions of people affected by leprosy in the world, and Lepra's work is not yet done. To align with this special centenary occasion, Lepra wants to raise awareness that, despite leprosy being the oldest human disease, it is curable. Today we are joined by Jimmy Innes, CEO of Leprosy UK, and Irene Allen, a Lepra archivist and historian. Jimmy, congratulations on your approaching 100-year milestone. Could you give us a quick overview of what Lepra is and also what it does?
Thank you very much. And first and foremost, I think it's good to talk about leprosy as opposed to Lepra, our organisation, because many listeners will be thinking about leprosy, thinking, well, that's interesting. They're coming on to talk about leprosy. It's like a disease of the past because it's no longer present in this country and it's got ancient connotations, etc. But leprosy is still very much a disease of the present. It exists. There are around 15 to 20 endemic or high burden countries in the world today, and we work in two of those, India and Bangladesh. India alone accounts for about 60% of all known cases of leprosy in the world. It has by far the highest number of leprosy cases of any country left in the world today. Annually, around the world in general, there's about 200,000 cases are diagnosed every year of leprosy. We estimate, it's only an estimation, no one really knows, but we estimate that about the same again go undiagnosed every year, so another 200,000. And we know that at least 3 million people around the world live with the lifelong impacts of leprosy. So for us as Lepra, our focus is on what we call early case detection. To us, that's the key. If we can identify cases early, then the more likely you are to prevent further infection or future infection, the more likely you are to prevent lifelong disability from occurring in persons affected. We identify cases early to enable people to access care, treatment and support early. The other thing about leprosy is it's entirely curable. The cures exist. They've been freely available under the WHO and national governments for the last 30, 40 years. The trick isn't the cure. The trick is getting people diagnosed so they can access the cure. I can't emphasize that enough. So us as an organization, we're evidence-led. We've always been engaged and at the forefront of research, innovation and technology. It's an area we're very proud of in our history and looking ahead into our future. And we're person-centered. For every number, every case of leprosy we hear around the world, it's more than just a number. Every case is a person. Every person has their individual experience of leprosy, their individual needs related to leprosy. So we work very much at the individual level, at the community level, at the grassroots level to empower individuals and groups of people to be able to lead with their own rights and inclusion in society and to be able to enjoy society on an equal footing to anybody else.
That was great, thanks Jimmy. And can you tell us a bit about the signs and symptoms of leprosy and how the disease affects people's lives today?
Of course, and contemporary context for sure, but leprosy is historical. It's one of the oldest known diseases to humanity. It's been around for millennia. It has, as I say, biblical connotations for many people in terms of its history and so forth. It's also a very stubborn and mysterious disease. It's hard to get rid of. The disease itself is a bacteria which enters the body through water droplets in the air. It gets transmitted from person to person, a bit like you get a cold or COVID, but different to colds and COVID, which are both highly contagious infections. Leprosy is a mildly contagious infection, which takes prolonged exposure in close proximity over a long period of time for it able to be transmitted from one person to another. We often find cases cluster, either within a family, people under the same roof can contract leprosy, or within the immediate neighbourhood. where people tend to spend more time with each other over a long period of time. So, yes, it's not easy to contract, but once it's in the body, the bacteria can also lie dormant for up to 20 years. Some people will never show signs and symptoms, and some people will take years for those to manifest themselves. Often the first symptom will be a light-coloured skin patch on the arm or the torso or other part of the body, which is desensitized. It has a loss of feeling. And the reason it has a loss of feeling is because the leprosy bacteria is affecting and damaging the nervous system. The longer it lies within the nervous system without being cured, the more damage it has. The more damage it has, the more likely you are to lose feeling in your fingers and your toes and other extremities of the body. If you lose that feeling in your fingers and toes, then you're more susceptible to cuts, burns, infections. And if those infections, if you get those, they don't hurt because you can't feel them. And if they don't hurt, they're less of an issue, so they're more likely to fester or to get infected. And then you're more likely to have lifelong physical impacts and impairments due to your leprosy infection. So that's physically how it manifests itself. But we can't, we've got to turn back to the really critically important area of mental health and well-being as well. Again, for everyone listening to this, everybody has a negative connotation with leprosy. Everyone knows the word leprosy to be tantamount to ostracization or exclusion or discrimination. And you can only imagine what a positive diagnosis of leprosy would mean to an individual, to you, or it happened to you in your life. Anyone diagnosed with leprosy has to live within a society that is pervasively prejudicial against them, starting within their own household and all the way up to the culture of the world in which they live. And so it's really important to address the social, emotional impact, well-being impact of leprosy as well. And it's one of the biggest impacts on people's lives.
Wonderful, thank you. And over to you, Irene. You know, a long and distinguished career with Lepra, 38 years as their chief archivist. So what are some of the highlights coming up for the centenary?
Well, having worked for Lepra for 38 years, I got a great interest in their history because it is a fabulous history. I mean, we were set up in 1924 to rid the empire of leprosy, very grand desire. But as Jimmy's been explaining, it's quite a little devil of a disease to get rid of. However, we in the 1920s, we set up an information booklet on leprosy called Leprosy Notes because there was no handbook on how to treat the disease at all. So doctors and lay workers in the field used to exchange notes of what they did, what worked for them, what didn't work for them. And then in the 1930s, this became our prestigious medical journal, Leprosy Review, which is one of the foremost English language journals in the world on this disease. And the 30s actually were very good for us because we were recognised at the International Leprosy Congress in Manila as the first leprosy prevention organisation. Because before us, I mean, other charities, organisations were looking after those with the disease, but they did nothing about trying to find a cure for it. That was our brief. And we went further than that. I mean, in the 1948, at the Havana Leprosy Congress, we managed to get the word leper banned because it's a hideous word. I mean, it just has all sorts of connotations attached to it. And in the 1950s, 1951, I think it was, we were able to get leprosy to become a notifiable disease in the UK, which nobody else had done before. But we've always been at the forefront of trying to cure this disease, and we've always spearheaded drug trials. In the 1940s, we trialled dapsone, and it was hailed as this wonder drug, and leprosy would be eliminated within 15 years. Well, sadly, that wasn't the case, because people became resistant to dapsone, so there had to be other drugs brought in. And in the 1960s, we did trials on clofazimine, the old B663, and in 1990s, we went on to afloxacin. And so we had this history of always trialling forwards and forwards. And we were the first ones to use multi-drug therapy, and we introduced it to all our projects at the time. And drugs were delivered by the Lepra Jeep on a sort of drug delivery circuit where patients knew exactly where their treatment would be delivered, where they would pick it up. And it was done with the regularity of a bus timetable. And this system has been emulated by many other organisations, not just us. But we've always been at the front, and the personal care has always been desperately important. And we've always served all people, no matter their creed, their colour or their religion. It matters not. It is the person with us that counts, and always will be in the future.
And same question to you, Jimmy. Centenary highlights, please.
Yeah, Irene is talking about her 38 years of working for this organisation. I haven't even been here for 2 years yet. So my organisational knowledge is a fraction of hers, and I learned so much listening to Irene talk and seeing the work she's done over her time with Lepra. For me, as still a relative newbie to the organisation, the things which stand out to me in terms of what the highlights of the last 100 years is that Lepra was a trailblazer in so many ways. When it was conceived of in the first place, it was the first organisation of its kind. It was at the forefront of drug trials when they were first beginning to be tested in the world. And I think that's an incredibly rich and powerful history as an organisation. Lepra within our sector of international aid and development has a strong reputation as an organisation that does great work, and that reputation is built on history. And so I'm very proud of our history as an organisation, and it gives us a great thing for us to build on now as we move into the future as well.
Outstanding. And on to activities for the centenary year. First to you, Irene. Could you give us a little overview?
We're having a travelling exhibition to go around the country and showcase what Lepra has done over the years, and also how people can become involved, how they can do their little bit to help eradicate this wretched disease once and for all. And there's all sorts of events planned, and if people want to really get involved, they can go to our website, which is www.lepra.org.uk, and that's Lepra, Lepra, and find out what's going on, because there's all sorts of things going on, and Jimmy can tell you more about that.
Absolutely. So our actual centenary date is the end of January 2024. That's the day we officially turn 100. But the centenary for us isn't just a moment in time. It's a whole year of celebration and activities. So we want to use the time to raise awareness of leprosy and of the work that we do. There'll be, Irene's talking about the mobile exhibition and a museum that we'll be taking around to different events, schools, communities, churches, to raise awareness of our work and our cause. We'll be holding fundraising galas, we'll be doing challenge events, people running the marathon for Lepra, cycle rides, golf days, all sorts of activities will be happening over the course of the year. And for us, as I was saying earlier, for me, the centenary is also about the future as much as the past. And next year, we're launching our new global strategy for the next 6 years ahead of us, which is all about what we as Lepra, what value we can add to accelerating progress towards a world where there is no more leprosy in it. And so I want to use the centenary next year as a springboard for us to be able to launch ourselves into the next phase.
Wonderful, thank you. And Irene, as Jimmy rightly pointed out, you've been at the charity for 38% of its entire existence, which is a hugely impressive feat. So could you just give us a brief overview of your time there?
I joined Lepra because I was intrigued by it. But one of the reasons I've stayed with Lepra all these years is because when I first went to India, one of our doctors was treating a young girl. Now, if you get leprosy in India and you're a bloke, your wife looks after you. If you get leprosy in India and you're a woman, you get chucked out and your children taken away. Or that's what it was when I joined Lepra. And there was a young girl there who's just had her hands reconstructed so they didn't look clawed. And she looked so sad and lonely, and I went and put my arm round her, and she went, and I thought, oh, God, Alan, what have you done? And I asked our doctor there to apologise. I said, if I've offended her in any way. And he said, it's not that, Irene. People don't hug people with leprosy. And touch is so important. I mean, we all need a hug when times get bad. We all need the human touch. And whenever things got bad for me with Lepra, that stuck in my mind, that human touch, that personal experience. And that's why I was there for 38 years. And I just thought we were such an incredible organisation. And I'm a bit of a history person myself, and delving into leprous history, it's just incredible. The people, what they went through. I mean, it's... Well, you'd need to be on air for hours for me to tell you all of it, but it's absolutely amazing. And I've written their history because it is so important. It's so inspiring with all the things that went on. I mean, when we were founded, no eminent person asked to join us refused. They all said, what a fabulous idea. We had everybody behind us. The then Prince of Wales, who very nearly became Edward VIII. We had King George VI was our first royal patron. Queen Elizabeth took over when he sadly died. So we've always been everywhere. I mean, we've just always been in the highlight. And when we got the charity Blue Peter, they had they were choosing a charity to be their partner charity in 1996, and we won that. And that was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. Children of all ages writing in and saying, oh, I can understand this. You know, I have a stammer. People don't talk to me because I'm weird, so, you know, other children won't speak to me. And they were giving their pocket money or their birthday money or whatever, and doing bring and buy sales to raise money for this disease that they would never know. And it was the most amazing time. I mean, we had to take over the army barracks in Colchester because the amount of mail that came in was far too much for our little office. It has just been an amazing 38 years. Absolutely.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And Jimmy, you know, same question. You know, we've it's been great getting to know you over the past couple of years in post there. So, you know, what's your time at the charity been like so far?
It's been great. You know, I've really enjoyed getting my feet under the table and getting to work with Lepra. You know, coming into an organisation with such a strong track record and history is also always a privilege, and so it's a very privileged position for me to be in, to head up the organisation. And having had the chance in my first 2 years to visit the work and see and experience the work that we do in India and Bangladesh, it leaves me nothing but a positive impression about what we do and why we do it. And for me, it's all about what more can we do. We are so well positioned. We do such a great job in the communities where we work. We can offer more. So it's very much for us about, as I say, accelerating momentum. The world is supposed to eliminate leprosy by 2030, according to the WHO targets. There's a roadmap to get us there. It's only 7 years away, and we're in the middle of a global economic crisis on the back of a global pandemic. We're not going to get there in time, but there is a day when we will get there. Whether that's in 10 years' time or 20 years' time, I don't know. Maybe it's more, but we're going to get there. So what can we as Lepra do to get there as fast and efficiently and effectively as possible? That's what our role is, and that's what we're going to do for the whole time that I work for the organisation.
Fantastic. And it's evidence-based hope, isn't it? Since you guys have made a sustained and measurable impact over the 100 years of your existence.
Exactly.
Jimmy Innes, CEO of Lepra, and Irene Allen, Lepra archivist and historian. That was fantastic. Thank you so much.